We're live.
Hi, everyone. Glad to be live. That was sudden and fun and quick. I am very glad to be here with all of us, hoping that there is a lot of people watching us from all around the world. And I'm also super duper excited to introduce to you our main guest. That is Dr. Vandana Shiva. For those of you who have never heard her or never heard her speaking, well, think of her to the closest to a superhero, basically. Just joking, or not probably. Well, this woman was born in the northern central part of India, Dehradun, and she devoted her life, on one hand, researching agroecology, and on the other hand, standing up for small farmers and fighting against big corporations in the agro-industry business. And she is also, well, this agro-industry sector is the one that is depleting a lot of our resources and for sure exacerbating the climate crisis. Vandana Shiva is also one of the most prominent voices of integral ecology and ecofeminism. And last but not least, so to speak, in 2014, she also helped shaping the Laudato Si, the second encyclical of Pope Francis, where the Pope calls for all humanity to take action against irresponsible development and against the climate crisis. So these are only a few words about a few endeavors of this mighty woman. And without further ado, I am really pleased to welcome her to join me and our panelists in this event that is called Glocal Happiness. So I hope she can now appear and unlock the mic so that everyone is able to see her. Vandana, are you there? Send me a sign.
Chiara. Chiara.
Maglio? Sì.
Maglio, sì. Sì, ho un messaggio da Vandana che ha qualche technical issue in arrivare in accedere, quindi aspetta che sto messaggiandola.
Ok. Lourdes, magari se vedi la richiesta di Vandana di connettersi, può essere il momento. Ok.
Okay.
Here she is.
Hi, Vandana.
Hello, hello.
Welcome here. You lost a little intro from me on your behalf.
I didn't because I could hear you. I could see you
You
and
could?
hear you,
Okay.
but I wasn't connected.
Then you know that I didn't pay you justice because you did so much more than what I just said. But I'm very, very glad that you're here with us and you made it. Really. Welcome. Welcome on behalf of all of the economy of Francesco. Really. So there is going to be three of us. I will be the first and we will ask you three questions actually. But sure. Before stepping into that, I'm going to do just a small intro to give everyone the context of why this is called the Glocal Happiness as a seminar, as a moment, and why we really wanted you to join us here today. So sure. Basically, this seminar is the second one of the School of Civil Happiness, which is offered by the Village of Policies and Happiness of the Economy of Francesco. So as you may notice, happiness is the key word here we are working with. It's the core of our work as a group. And what we are basically trying to do is to find a way to build a regulatory space where it can be happiness of people and their virtue and life fulfillment can be supported and facilitated. So the first thing that we have done is try to think of what happiness means and how it can be cultivated. But from that point, we want to move to the policy level, basically, in order to foster change that enhances happiness. But how? Well, by remodeling the economy so that it supports people's happiness and most importantly, the planet, the whole Earth's well-being beyond the yield market rationale. And at the same time, of course, we need to have a change of mindset, each one of us, in order to enable this change also in our everyday life. So The last word that I want to say before asking my question to you, and oh my God, I'm super excited and I should not be here saying it, is that we really wanted you here because we are seeking for a concrete and outspoken reflection about how to build effective public policies that on one hand enable individuals' happiness and the care of the commons by the communities, and on the other hand, effectively safeguard this happiness and well-being from the capitalist market forces that act on a global level. So with this premise, I'm gonna ask you my question, and I'm gonna be all ears to hear the answer, which is drawing really from your personal experience, Vandana, on one hand with policymakers, and on the other hand with civil society. What would be the operational steps, or if you want, the boxes that needs to be ticked in order to concretely build effective public policies that enhance people's happiness, that foster the care of the commons, and at the same time can safeguard this happiness from the macroeconomic capitalist forces?
Well, I think the first thing we've to do is tick a box that understands where so many of the words that seem to be having existed forever have had recent constructions. Okay, we've had markets forever, but the new market with a capital M, a market as God, which is something that is talked about in Laudato Si, where religion, the money making becomes a religion. This is actually not a market, because in a market there's exchange. In a market there's community. We've had amazing markets in my country, even in remote villages, weekly markets, which burst into the most beautiful handicrafts and the most amazing vegetables. The amazing markets in Italy, those are markets because they are exchanges. And if I am in a village market and I'm selling to a neighbor, I'm not going to cheat, because I might have vegetables and they will have asari, and we both need each other, and therefore there's honesty and mutuality. That's a market. What we call the market today is really the extractive economy, a commerce created by colonialism. And I know this well because I'm from the country where this commerce was established through the East India Company. We didn't have corporations, we had businesses. The corporation was born in 1600 in the name of East India Company. Now, when the East India Company comes to India, grabs our land, puts taxes on our peasants on their own land, transfers $45 trillion in the period of British rule, leaves 60 million people, I would not call this violence and this loot a market. Because it is violence, it's a war, it's colonialism. And I would really like both activists and people in public policy to try and understand, how did what we call capitalism grow? Did it grow as capitalism, which means the rule of capital? And I've went to the roots of what is capital. It's caput, which in Italian means the heads of cattle, yeah? So if you had 10 animals, that was your true wealth. But at a certain point, just like a corporation was created as a legal fiction, wealth was made a fiction and turned into capital. And then we allowed the word capital to be used for theft. And we hid what was being appropriated. We hid the extraction. And all my work on ecofeminism, whether it's my book on staying alive or the book on ecofeminism itself with Maria Mies, all of this is about taking for free from nature, taking for free from women, taking for free from peasants, taking for free from workers, and making that extraction appear like the creation of capital. All you have to do is read the nonsense of Bacon, the nonsense of Hobbes, the nonsense of Locke, all these so-called Anglo-Saxon theater thinkers who were basically creating the architecture to legitimize the fiction of capitalism, the fiction of the market, when all they were doing was enclosures of the commons and colonialism. So my first take is learn your history. Mm-hmm. Remember, do not forget. The second is look into your roots, but look into the present of what are the actual markets that work. What is true wealth? And the meaning of wealth, again, is not money, it's the state of well-being, it's the state of happiness. So happiness and true wealth don't grow separately. And fake wealth created through extraction is created by crushing people and leaving them unhappy because they don't have enough food, they don't have work, they're refugees, and that's a lot of unhappiness. But the sad thing is, the extractors are not happy either. Just look at their faces. Look at the faces of the 1%. Make a collage.
I will do this next weekend.
Unhappy billionaires. Just make a thing of unhappy billionaires.
That's true. That's true. But so, policy-wise, let's imagine when you work with policymakers to make it effectively, an effective policy, how do you shape it? Like you try to put like rules to the market. That would be your take, like to go this direction?
Well, I would not put rules to a fiction. I would expose the fiction, and from the communities, learn and listen and say, what do they want? Mm-hmm. And in a way, communicate to policymakers what people want. Ever since I got involved with the Chipko movement, where women in my region came out to hug trees to protect our forests, I've always seen myself as bringing the best of my scientific training, but really to be a messenger of the earth, a messenger of communities. So you take the honesty of people's life to the policymakers. And let me give you 3 examples. Example 1 is the forest issue. So what I started to do was all the functions of an ecological natural forest and all the impact of plantations and clear felling, how the latter create droughts and floods. And therefore what the women were saying, that these are not timber mines. Look at the impact on water and soil and air and climate. I turned that into science. In fact, probably right here is a book I wrote at that time. It's called Ecology and the Politics of Survival. It was done for the United Nations University. And I went through a lot of detail. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Yeah, to make policymakers understand the knowledge of women now put into science, right? The second, I was asked by the Ministry of Environment of India to look at the impact of mining. I was then working in Bangalore. The impact of mining was to be studied in my hometown, my valley, where I am now in the lockdown in Doon Valley, in the Himalaya, where Vandana has set up the Earth University. And I did what I always do. I do participatory research. I agreed to do it, but I first went to the villages and asked the women, what's the issue of mining? And it's the women who told me water. And then I started to do studies on geohydrology to reinforce what the women were anyway saying, it's about water. And the study we did showed that if the limestone was left in the mountains, it created a bigger economy than when the limestone was mined and went to make cement or went into a sugar factory, etc. And that study became the basis of a Supreme Court case where the court said the state has a duty to protect life. Healthy ecosystems are necessary for life. Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. And therefore, when commerce undermines ecosystems and life, commerce must stop because the duty to protect life cannot stop. The third example, I was at a meeting in 1987 where the company that's today dead, but for about 30 years was my favorite company, Monsanto. And the chemical companies and the poison cartel and, Navdanya International has a big campaign on a poison-free food and farming. And this is a very important policy issue. I'll come back to this policy issue. In fact, it's the fourth case I want to share with you. So I'm listening to these chemical companies who poison the world, and now they're saying we want to own the seed. And we have to do genetic engineering in order to take a patent, because now we can claim we've invented the seed, and we've got to impose a global law called intellectual property rights of TRIPS in the GATT. I heard GATT for the first time. I heard about patenting of life for the first time. And in the dialogue, I said, but you don't invent a seed. Seed is not an invention. It's not a machine. And they said, no, by the time we're finished, it will be recognized as a machine, a self-replicating machine invented by us. I said, no, by the time I'm through, we will ensure that there are no patents on seed. And I came back and started to work with my government, with our parliament, and we managed to do two things. In the WTO TRIPS, my government, its Ambassador SP Shukla, said, no, we have to have exemption. We cannot force patenting on life and patenting on seed on the whole world. The implications are too big. And an exemption was put that then allowed countries like India to say, no, seed is not invention, plants are not invented, animals are not invented, and we have an Article 3J in our patent law which says plants, animals, seeds are not inventions. This is how not only did we reach policymakers, we reached law, but on the ground, the community seed banks continue to grow. We've created 150 community seed banks. Internationally, now International has built a global seed freedom movement. In Italy, I worked with the region of Tuscany to pass a law on native seeds. Across all of Europe, we have worked to prevent a law that would have made it illegal for farmers to have their own seed. It was called the Plant Propagation Law, passed by, brought by the European Commission. And then we worked with the European Parliament. But we did a pilgrimage from Greece through Italy to France, the biodiversity-rich regions of Europe. And this then held this law back. But coming back to the issue of poisons, of course, I've been looking, I got into agriculture because of the way poisons killed people in my country in Bhopal in 1984. Death because of poisons and chemicals pushed the prosperous farmers of Punjab initially to rebellion and then eventually to suicide. And I wrote a book called The Violence of the Green Revolution. And I have been doing research to show how actually poisons do harm and biodiversity produces more. We have a report called Nutrition per Acre, Health per Acre. We show that by conserving biodiversity and growing native seeds, we can feed 2 times India's population. And I think this principle is an ecological principle. The ecosystems might be different, but the principles of ecology don't change. And the same principles applies around the world. So instead of having 1 billion people hungry under the current industrial system, we could have enough food for 14 billion, healthy, nutritious food that would make them stronger, build their immunity, and we wouldn't have to invade into the forests and create the pandemics. My blog called Ecological Reflections of the Coronavirus shows the links between a non-sustainable, poison-based, GMO-based food system and the pandemics and the chronic diseases. And we have a manifesto called Food for Health, which has been published by Navdanya International, by a very, very strong group of medical experts, ecologists, seed experts, and public health people. And it is quite an amazing document. It's the first that showed all the links and the extremely big burden on health. So how does all this work in policy? With the chief minister of Sikkim and a mayor of in northern Italy, Omas, in South Tyrol, we launched a poison-free food and farming movement. This poison-free food and farming movement has grown huge. Mayors are saying we won't use poisons. Across France, cities and towns have won cases. And in the most recent elections, every mayor who won an election was against poisons in farming and in the city, like Roundup. So all these show, but what I'm trying to stress is policy, democratic policy grows from the ground and goes to policymakers. Dictatorship comes from the top and is imposed on citizens. But because democracy as a living process is multifunctional, just like every other system that's living is multifunctional, I don't have just one hand, and my hand doesn't have just one finger. No, I've got two hands, lots of fingers, and I've got legs, and I've got eyes, and I've got a nose, and I've got a mouth. I've got an amazing body that can do so many things, including talking to you. So that when you ask for a tick, I'm saying there are no ticks. Ticks are on animals, and when they escape from animals and come and infect us, they give us Lyme disease and other diseases. So keep them. Keep the ticks on the animals. Use your thoughts. Think and link policy to actions on the ground in communities.
I'm applauding on behalf, I'm sure, of all the public here that has heard. I think it was a very exhaustive answer. I will leave the ground now to the second panelist. There is Ofer Dotan, another amazing, mighty woman. So I will mute myself and thank you for now and talk to you later, Dr. Vandana. Answer.
Thank you, Dr. Vandana, for your answer. I thought it was very enlightening. And I'm going to try to play the devil's advocate in this question to bring some critical approach into the discussion. And I think that in the community of the economy of Francesco, for example, many of us are very comfortable with openly criticizing capitalism and with adhering to what you are saying, that the market is a fiction and that there are real problems with the system and how it was created. But at the same time, for example, you say participatory democracy, let's go and ask the people. So some of the people, they believe so strongly and they glorify this specific notion of individual freedom, like Locke suggested. And this leads them to basically base their argument and ideology and to contest the idea that it's even economically feasible to shift the paradigm towards the local-based economy. And besides that, to some extent, currently we are all benefiting or using the system as it is, the social structures that are available. We travel to conferences and leisure, we buy stuff online. Many people, they work in corporations and factories, even here in our audience. And not to speak about the fact that sometimes it's even hard to discern what is right or wrong and what are the consequences of some of our daily actions, because the structures are so complex and globalization made everything to be interconnected, and this results in inherent incoherences. And this led me to the question of how do you personally cope with the fact that while you try to work and create a reality that enhances people's happiness, on the way, for some, you generate antagonism and negativity because people disagree with you. And sometimes these people that disagree with you are just people that legitimately wish to be a part of the system because they hope to achieve a little bit of happiness to their own lives through this. So I was wondering, how do you cope with that some may perceive your ideas to be patronizing, that you dictate a certain notion of happiness to them?
I don't cope with anything. I just live my life and I live my truth. And I don't dictate to anyone. I understand, I observe, I reflect, I experience, I learn from nature. I learn, as I've mentioned again and again, from women in our communities. I learn from the best scientists. Amazing work in this last decade. You know, Western science, which had gone down a dead end alley following people like Bacon, around mechanistic thought that the earth is dead, reductionist thought that everything is separate, is now waking up to the fact that everything is interconnected and the earth is alive and the plants are alive and the microbes are alive and every part of our body, our cells are alive. So people knew this. And, you know, if I look at the two cultures, there are many cultures in the world, including my own. But the two Western cultures, for me, so clearly, one is the Anglo-Saxon world that was built out of the British Empire and creating an empire through colonialism. And then it gave itself wonderful names about how they progress through technology and capitalism creates and amazing. You know, one day I'll write a book on the illusions. I have written a book, Oneness versus 1%, which is available in Italy as The Planet is for All from Feltrinelli, and it has a large part of these illusions. But I'm also very familiar with the Renaissance of Italy. After all, Navdanya International is based in Florence, and I have had the privilege to see Michelangelo's David in real life, to walk to the Uffizi Museum and see the brilliant paintings, to understand. I was in fact hospitalized in the Leonardo da Vinci Hospital. I nearly died, but I am alive.
Oh, no.
You know, so I look at the Renaissance thinking of people like Leonardo da Vinci, the amazing artists, plus the most amazing scientists. And my dear friend, you know, he's written The Web of Life and other books. He's written a book on the mind of Leonardo, on the science. And I think there needs to be much, much more reflection on the difference between an Anglo-Saxon model of so-called enlightenment, because it was not enlightenment. Fritz of Capra, exactly. It wasn't enlightenment. It was pushing the world into darkness, a darkness of ignorance, a darkness of blindness, what I call the monoculture of the mechanistic mind. And then you have the real opening of the mind through the Renaissance. So when you say, I don't cope with anything, I mean, that's my philosophy on life. I don't have to carry other people's burdens. And the earth carries us, so I don't carry a burden either. You know, I'm grateful to her every morning and say, thank you for supporting our life. But because I understand the powers, I understand the power of consent. I understand the way they pay. They write for journalists to say, write this on your blog, or write this in Forbes, or write it in all the various websites they've created. I've been attacked hugely in the period where I was doing a lot of work on the GMO question. And we had created the GMO-free network. I had framed the international laws on biosafety. I've been through this. So every time they attack me, am I going to cope with their attack or try and understand better how the greed economy works on the basis of spreading fake science, fake news, and personal attacks? This is where we need immunity. And for me, inner strength is immunity. Just like when we eat good food, our body has immunity, and not everyone who gets the COVID infection is dying. Most of them aren't. We know most of the people in Italy who died were old or had comorbidity around the world. That is the case. So if you're strong with it, in every way, your body's immunity, your mind's immunity, your heart's immunity, that immunity helps you be resilient. And the planet needs resilience, which comes from diversity. We need resilience, which comes from ethical integrity and following your conscience. You follow that, they can attack you any amount. They can keep attacking me. You know, I've already done this work for 5 decades, and I'm ready to do it as long as I'm around to serve the earth and society. I'm quite happy to continue to do it, and they can keep shouting and attacking. It doesn't matter.
And another small point, you were discussing about asking the communities what do they want when creating policies. But what happens if some communities, because they're so, that's the only thing they know, the current market economy. That's what they know. They don't see an alternative in some places. So this is what they will bring up to policymakers. So like this logic of going to the communities, it might result in just reproducing the same processes.
Well, 3 points on this. The first is that in any case, globalization is in lockdown. Yeah? Stop. So I don't think we should worry too much about can we live outside globalization, because the lockdown has shown, yes, it's very possible. It's happened. Second is I've just done a blog. Yesterday was World Simplicity Day. I've done a blog on the simplicity revolution. And the simplicity revolution is basically understanding 3 absolutely, the facts that you cannot change. First, that we are on a planet. It's a living planet. Second, that we share it with other beings. Third, that the planet gives us enough to have happiness and well-being. Enough water, enough food, enough air, enough soil, enough land, enough diversity. And if we take a share without destroying other people's share, we can live very well. And that's why Gandhi said, live simply so others may live. Yeah. So in an interconnected world, this is an imperative. Simplicity is an imperative. But I've gone further in the whole simplicity revolution to say, what did the lockdown force us to do? It forced us to say what's important and what's not important. Of course, it's true some are addicted to ordering on Amazon Prime. And I think they're part of the problem because they don't understand the difference between going to your neighborhood store, your farmer's market, and ordering on Amazon. That Amazon is destroying the planet and work. Mr. Bezos, in 3 months of lockdown, has increased his personal wealth by $54 billion. Do you want to be part of that economy of sin? You want to be part of that economy of theft? You want to be part of that economy of spreading unemployment, dispossession, destroying writers, publishers, clothing, vegetable markets? You want to be part of their destruction? Or can you discriminate and say, not only is this essential for me, but this produced in this way is essential for the planet? That's where ecological literacy comes in. That's where earth democracy comes in. Then you ask the question about asking communities who are already in this addiction of consumerism and being passive participants in destruction. I don't see this process as atomistic. You are here, or either you dictate your policy, or you go without a mind, with an empty mind, and ask. No, we are in relationship. I'm in relationship with the earth. I understand when deforestation destroys. I understand when climate havoc causes flooding. I understand when pesticides cause cancer. I have my knowledge. Go to the communities and listen. And there'll be some who depend on a pesticide plant for their jobs. But there will be 90% who are victims of pesticides with cancer. So when you listen to all, then you have the biodiversity of learning. And through the biodiversity of learning, It's like, in a sieve, you separate the wheat, the flour from the chaff. You learn how to separate the flour from the chaff. So just like imposing policy and treating people as passive is wrong, treating yourself as passive and thinking, you see, and what you've raised, this question is particularly important because so many of the institutions of democracy are being destroyed in this name of so-called populism. Yeah, this is what the people want. And what you have is Facebook and social media feeding fake news, feeding hate, feeding fear, polarizing society. And then when you go and ask, of course, you're going to have feedback of hate. You're going to have feedback of exclusion. You're going to have feedback of fear. Therefore, we have to weave society back together. And we have to listen to each other. And we have to listen to each other in an open and democratic way. This is what I mean by Earth democracy.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you very much. And for the last question, I invite Ignacio to come to the call, and he will pose the last question. Thank you for your answers.
So, good morning from Chile in South America, Dr. Vandana Shiva.
Hello.
Such a great honor to meet you. I'm a bit nervous now because it's.
Don't get nervous. I'm just another fellow human being, fellow Earth citizen.
Thank you. So, for this third question, I would like to get into the actions and to talk about it, because we have had an intellectual discussion about policies, a rather emotional scope about engaging people, being strong, and this democracy of Earth. And now I would like to talk about how shall we move to action. So for this question, I would like to start by sharing you something about my normal life. I have a group of friends. We are very passionate about sustainability, and I guess we are kind of those people who like to dream of a better world, and we gather around a cup of coffee or maybe a couple of beers, and we like to talk and discuss how to achieve sustainability. And we have came with this idea of the ANT strategy, which consists in perform little actions, but very coordinated by a lot of people. So by this little action, we can leverage a very, very big change, just like ants work. So given this idea of the ANT strategy, and knowing that public policy is very important, but sometimes can be very slow or cannot come from roots, from people, but from other powers, I would like you to know your opinion of what a good ANT strategy for a global community could be. Here you have tens of participants listening to you. Most of them are young people who wants to create impact on Earth. So I would like to invite you to share what would your ANT strategy call for action be?
Yeah. So I would say three things. The last 400 years have been shaped by this mechanistic idea, yeah, driven by colonialism and greed, and then given all kinds of names. Ignorance was called science, greed was called capital accumulation, all kinds of naturalization of a process of theft was given. And the most serious damage this did was create separation as a worldview. Right? Now, I did my PhD in the foundations of quantum theory on the issue of non-locality and non-separability. That even in physics 100 years ago, we realized that everything is interconnected. But even today, the dominant thinking in politics, in environmentalism, in definitely economics, even society is, everything is separate. Everything is an atom. Nothing is related to each other. Now, this then creates the Hobbesian village. So you have Bacon describing this as the issue of science. You have Locke designing this as destroying the commons to piece off privatized property and enclose the commons. And then you have Hobbes saying, oh, people left to themselves will be in chaos. So therefore you have to have a strong centralized power. Just look at the cover of the book called Leviathan. Yeah, we are all puppets where a strong centralized power is holding us together. And this strong leader who increasingly becomes fascist, you know, what did Mussolini say when he named it as fascism? He said it's a coming together of the power of the economy and the power of centralized dominant control. That is fascism. That depends on this centralized control. But that centralized control depends on separation, that we can't unite. And we can only unite through some centralized power. That's why I say, learn from nature, learn from community. So from nature, what do we learn? In the soil, you just give the soil a little bit of organic matter. And we don't do anything outside that giving. And out of the blue, the fungi come, the bacteria come, and they know exactly how to work with each other in harmony. When you've destroyed that, what starts to fill the soil? Toxic fungi, toxic bacteria, then they bring the fungicides and the bactericides and the pesticides and the herbicides, and the vicious cycle does not stop. But there's a harmony between the soil organisms, and they know how to organize. Second, what the scientists are now reminding us is what we all knew. Hippocrates said, let food be thy medicine. My ancient Ayurveda system, the science of life, says food is the medicine. Modern science 10 years ago is starting to catch up and realizing it's all in our gut. So we have been defined as a machine, right? And we just pour stuff into us. When I go to schools and work with children, I say, what is food? Our fuel. And what are you? A machine. Yeah. So of course you can mess the food up. And of course you can mess this body up, because machines don't get sick, but bodies do. And the chronic diseases and the pandemic is reminding us that we are not machines. We can get sick. And food makes a decision between whether we'll be sick or healthy. So if you think of it, there are between 60 to 100 trillion. Just think of the number, 10 to the power 12. Microbes in our soil. Each of them knows what to do. We have to eat diversity to feed them all. They don't just know what to do for themselves. They know exactly what to do for our brain, my muscles, my blood. Here are these brilliant 100 trillion microbes working in community, making this amazing organism work. Take this to the planetary level. If each of us and our communities are the microbes in our gut, and the global human community on one planet is this body, surely if we can function in harmony like this and self-organization, you come from Chile, I would suggest to all the young people who are part of this happiness search, read two brilliant scientists. One is Chilean and one is Spanish. And I know one of them has passed away, Maturana and Varela, on the science of living organisms. It's probably the most important scientific work for our times. And once you realize that everything is self-organized, then we apply it to ourselves that we are self-organized. And my being self-organized doesn't mean I have to be in competition with another self-organized person, because we can, through mutuality, which is the natural way to be, enhance each other's well-being and happiness. So we need economy written in the principles of Maturana and Varela. That is the economy of happiness. That is the economy according to St. Francis. How is it that Francis says it's only in giving we receive? If we were separate, my giving could not become my receiving. It's because we are interconnected. My giving becomes my receiving, and my grabbing becomes the loss of everyone.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I think I will start searching for this book. I guess the name is The Tree of Life, Maturanas and Varelas.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Well, so I have a lot of homework and also caring about my food, which is also. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I will
Yeah,
leave
you
Chiara.
can read my book, Who Really Feeds the World. It's available in Spanish and it's available in Italian. It was in fact commissioned for the Milan Expo, but also our manifesto on food for health, which has all the details on how we are totally connected in health, from the planet to our farms and our plants to our gut. And we can't chop it up. We can in our minds through illusions. But every time we chop up, we cause damage, we cause sickness.
Thank you very much for your answer. I think we're all called for action and for studying, which is very, very important.
Just one final thing.
Yeah,
if you want to understand what actions to take, go to the Navdanya International website. Navdanya International is co-hosting this. Go to the Navdanya International website and you will find all the actions that any of you can start with, wherever you are.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you very much. I will give the word or the space to Chiara in order to do the last movements.
Yes. Thank you so much, Nacho. Thank you, Ofer, also. Vandana, I literally was crying while you were talking at times. Really, thank you so much for some answers, really powerful ones that you gave. I must say that in a way, like there was Michael Pollan that said that food is a political act. Then you came in saying saving seeds is a political act. And then I must say that now, in a way, also pursuing in a healthy way happiness can be considered a political act. So I think...
Can I add, it is not just a political act, it's an ecological act, and it's an ethical act, and it's a spiritual act. Both food and the search for happiness. Yeah?
Yes, I could have not said it better than this, I must say. There is one question from the public that if you would like to briefly address, I think it's really touching and personal. There is a person that says, Vandana, thank you for your incredible strength and light. I want to ask you a very personal question. Are you happy yourself? And if so, what are the roots of this happiness? And
I'm very happy. I'm very much at peace with myself. What are the roots of happiness? Not wanting anything more than what you have, being satisfied, not being greedy for what doesn't belong to you. And what I have learned from my culture, giving your best with the deepest passion while being detached to the rewards.
Beautiful. And I think we could not end with a better message than this. We have one last person to call in that will show what she was working on while we were talking, is Miriam. She is a visual artist besides a lot of other things, and she prepared a drawing that is kind of summarizing this moment that we had with you. And after that, there will be also Loredana that reminds the last appointments. And then for whoever wants, there is also at the end a circle time for us in the Zoom. And one last thank you. The last one will be for you for sure, but also to our translator in Spanish, Maria Jose. She worked on another channel, but she did a great job for all our friends around the world that are Spanish speakers. So also a big thank you to her for helping. So I just send you a big hug from far away. Thank you so much, Vandana. And we live, like really, we will bring your words with us. They made us definitely stronger and we will remember them while we get together again later on.
One more thing, let me just mention, Navdanya will be working on its next manifesto, which we'd have done in March, but it had to be postponed. But we will work on it before the end of the year, and it's called Economies of Care. And it fits right into the economy of St. Francisco. So look out for it. Manvia will
Exactly.
make it available.
Exactly. We will try to connect also through that. Very nice one. Miriam, if you want to connect and show us what you did, I leave you the floor. Beautiful, I think. Beautiful drawing. You see, Vandana?
Very nice.
Very nice one. I will send it to you also then.
Yeah.
If you like. Thank you, Miriam. Beautiful
Thank
drawing.
you. Thank Miriam. Thank you, Miriam. Lovely. No, you all can do so much, and I look forward to doing a lot with you and Navanya International and your group of young people. I think we can create a lot of happiness and well-being and peace in the next few years. Okay, the best to all of you. Bye-bye.
Yes. Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Loredana, if you want to give us the inputs about the next appointments of the school, it's all yours.
Thank you, Chiara. I just need to share my screen. Okay, I will go on with the announcement because there is some technical issue with the screen sharing. So, hi everyone, just a few seconds to tell you that today we are launching the second topic of the Village Policies and Happiness on Oikonomics, the family and integral ecology. So during this month, we will analyze the relationship between the family, integral ecology, the economy, and happiness, with a specific focus on what has been happening currently during the COVID pandemic, when all these dimensions are currently being challenged. And then we will also discuss policies concerning these relationship in intense environments, and try at the same time to envisage some innovative prophetic solutions in looking forward, and looking towards the future. So later today, we will be posting on Mighty Network an introductory abstract of this topic. And to start this reflection, we announce another appointment of the School of Civil Happiness, which will take place on July 16th from 4 to 5 p.m. with a webinar on families, human flourishing, and public happiness. This time, we will have the chance to welcome Domenico Sorrentino, Archbishop of Assisi, in dialogue with Dalila De Rosa, a research officer at the Ministry of Economy and Finance of Italy. So don't miss this next exciting webinar with us. And thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you, Loredana. I think we can conclude this webinar. I don't know how the circle does work. Maybe you, Loredana, can also share it or somehow facilitate it. I must say that I was talking with Ignacio and Ofer